Hi and welcome to the first in this series of videos about making a dungeon from scratch using my free add-on for Blender, MakeTile. My name's Richard and I'm the creator of MakeTile. And what I'm going to show you over the course of the next 2 or 3 videos is how to go from basically nothing to a dungeon which looks like this. Well, this is still quite basic and plain. It looks pretty good when we look at it in the real world, so this is what it looks like once it's all printed out, and also this has been put together in about an hour using only the MakeTile menu. MakeTile's been designed to be used by people with absolutely no Blender experience, so pretty much everything you need to do you can do from this one little menu here. If you've not got Blender or MakeTile installed on your computer at the moment, there's links to a couple of videos in the description which I've put up showing you how to download and install it, and also the basic controls which you'll need to use Blender. Okay, let's get started. So I've put on screencast so you can see what keys I'm pressing. I'll try and say it as I go along, but I'm going to be using shortcuts. Blender, although now you can access everything through the menus, Blender does really sort of benefit from using shortcuts. So I am going to be using those. Right, so to start with, I'm going to go up here and click on Snap during transform, and on the little menu I'm going to make sure I'm on increment and absolute grid snap. And what that's going to do is it's going to snap any object I move to the world grid. I'm then going to press 7 to go into top view. I'm pressing 7 on the numpad. You can also click up here to switch between views. I'm going to make sure that I'm in orthographic view, and you can see that up here. So orthographic view, and I'm just going to delete everything in my scene, and I am going to make sure that I can see my MakeTile menu. If you can't see that, just press N and bring it up. You can also there's a little arrow here that you can click on. Make sure MakeTile is selected. So I'm going to lay out the floor first. So I'm going to keep the first option, which is blueprint, to open lock. Type is going to be rectangular floor. The main material I'm going to start with is floor tiles, and tile size X and Y 2x2. It's absolutely fine. So if I click on MakeTile, it'll make a little floor tile. If I go to create lighting setup, it'll switch the render over to cycles, and if we zoom in you can see that it's showing as a 3D tile. Okay, so I'm going to click up here on viewport shading to speed everything up. I'm going to click on 7 again, to press 7 again on the numpad to go back into top view, and I'm going to click on MakeTile again and press G to grab. So I can now move my tile around. If you deselect your tile just by clicking anywhere in space, when you come to select it again, you want to make sure you're clicking on the base, because everything on the tile is parented to that. So if I click just on the top, then yeah, it's all going to go horribly wrong. So make sure you're selecting the base. In order to stop having to go up here every time I want to add a new tile, I'm going to create a shortcut. I've actually already created it. I can do that by right clicking on any of these buttons and clicking on change shortcut or create shortcut. So I'm just going to use Control Shift and backslash because those keys are next to each other. And I tend to use that for a sort of a temporary shortcut when I'm doing something loads of times. Okay, so I'm going to create more tiles and just quickly lay out this floor. Okay, I'm just going to quickly move the cursor so it's closer to where I'm working, and just do that by pressing Shift and right click. Okay, I'm now going to add some corner tiles, some sort of triangular tiles. So I'm going to go up here and click on triangular floor. It's going to leave the defaults as they are, and click on MakeTile, and just drag this over here and rotate it. Looks like when I switched on rotation, I only switched it on to move. I want it to be on rotate as well, and that'll snap the rotation to 5-degree intervals. I'm just going to do that like that. Make tile. Okay, and down here in the corner I want this room to have a little curve to it. So I'm going to click on the semicircular floor tile and click on Make Tile. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build sort of a little plinth, the platform. I'm just going to sketch it out at this point, so later on in another video I'm going to make this into a very pretty, sort of much more complicated thing, but for now I just want to sort of block in the shape. So what I'm going to do is I am going to keep on my semicircular floor. I'm going to change the blueprint from open lock to custom. And this is going to allow me to set the base type and the height of the main bit of the tile separately. So I'm going to change the main system to plane, and that means I can now set the overall height of the tile. So by default these are 0.3 inches tall, which is sort of standard open lock size. I'm going to change that to 0.6. so that it's the tile I create is going to be sort of, you know, a step, and I'm going to change the radius of the tile to 3. Okay, I'm going to go back into top view, pressing 7 on the numpad, and then click on Make Tile. Okay, and I've now got a semicircular tile, and just place these two here and then show you this, and you can see this, it's twice the size, so it's a little step. So in the corner here I want to fill that space in, so I'm going to just quickly switch that back to open lock, so it sort of resets the defaults, default height, and the curve type this time is going to be negative, and then click on Make Tile, and we've got this, you know, negative curve as it were. And just rotate that into place. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make a square tile, which is going to be again 0.6, and this time it's going to be 3 by 3. So in order to sort of switch over quickly between tile types, if you just click on one of the tiles, it will bring up the default settings for that tile which you've created previously. If I click on that, it'll go back to a square tile, and it's just easy for me to change that to a custom blueprint. Main system is going to be plane, and that's going to be 3 by 3, and the tile size is going to be 0.6, which is the overall size. Make tile. Grab that over there, zoom in so that I get to the next layer of squares, because I can't place this in the right place if I'm on the big square. So I'll just zoom in using the mouse button and move it over like that, and click on Make Tile again. You can also at any time press shift when you're in grab mode, and that will start snapping things to the next smallest grid size. So that's another way of making sure everything's in the right place. Okay, so I'm going to just fill in the sides here. Okay, and then I'm going to add a sort of a second layer to this plinth here. So I want things to be on the right level, so I'm going to select one of my tiles. I'm going to press Tab, and I'm going to select one of these vertices. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but that's a vertex there. And then I'm going to press Shift and S on the keyboard, and I'm going to snap the cursor to select it. Okay, so that's now snapped to that level, and I'm going to go to make sure I've got semicircular floor selected. I'm going to go to custom again, base type. I don't actually want there to be a base now because this is just going to be sort of textured, so that's going to be none. Main system is plain, and that's going to be 0.3, which is the standard size of our tiles. And I'm going to have the radius as 2. If I make the tile there, and then rotate it round, then that's a sort of second step to our plinth. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the same with a square tile here. Oops. Rectangular floor. Makes that none. Main system plane. Z 0.3. There we go. Ooh. And yeah, just want that to be 3 by 2. There we go. Right. Okay, so that's our floor created now. So if I just go over to create lighting setup. Okay, so this is what things will look like as when they're printed out. So all these are the same at the moment, but when we actually go to export things, we'll generate different variants, so we don't have all the tiles looking exactly the same. Okay, so I'm now going to create the walls. So in order to reset my cursor to the right height, I'm going to press Shift and S, and I'm going to select cursor to world origin. Okay, and that's going to snap everything, the cursor, back to that place. And then just going to press Shift and right click to move my cursor out into empty space. Right, so I now want to create my walls. So I'm going to click on Open Lock, go on to corner wall because I want to fill in the corners first, and then I'm going to change my main material to this regular stone blocks material, which is what I'm going to be using for my walls. I'm going to leave the defaults as they are, and I'm going to make sure I go back to viewport shading so that things go quicker. Okay, so I'm now going to click on MakeTile. And you can see that we've got the sockets on the bottom, and the 2x2 bit, as it were, the length is based on the length of the side of the base with the sockets on. So if I just go up here and change that base angle to -90, you'll see that the sockets now are on the other side, and it's that which is 2x2. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this one, I'm going to rotate it round, I'm going to put it there, and this one, which has got sockets on the other side, I'm going to grab, oops, make sure I'm clicking on the base, and rotate it around there, make another tile, grab it, rotate it so it's there, make another tile, grab it so it's there. Okie dokie. Right, so for these two corners, I don't want tiles to be sort of butting up against each other. So I'm going to create a tile which is 1x2 here, and then one which is 1x2 there, and same down here. So I'm just going to change leg length of one of them to 1. And which one does that go on? That one goes on to this one. No, that goes onto that one. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to swap around the leg length for the next one, for that one. And then I want to make ones for this corner here, which is going to be minus 90. So the sockets are on the other side. Oop. Just change that from 1 to 2. Okay, so I want one for up here and one for up here, so I'm just going to select that, move my cursor over, click on MakeTile, rotate that around, and click on MakeTile. You can also rotate objects by pressing R on the keypad and then typing in the degrees you want on the numpad. So if I go R minus 90, it'll rotate it into place, which can be quite useful sometimes. It's just sort of quicker to do. Okay, so now I need to do these ones, which are going to be so that's going to be a 135-degree angle there. So I need to know the length of this hypotenuse, because I want to have my tile just going sort of halfway along, so I can avoid this sort of, so I can have everything be sort of joined up nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to, which is the measure tool, I'm going to click, and there's going to be an error probably. Oh yes, there we go. So I'm going to click again, and I'm going to, come on, click again. I'm going to press Control, which will allow it to snap to vertexes. I'm going to have a look at what that number is. So that number is 2.828. So I want this to be 1.414. So I'm just going to go up to here again, and I'm going to select that tile because that's the right way, and I want that to be 135. I want leg 1 to be 2, and then I want this one to be 1.414. Okay, MakeTile. If I bring that around, rotate that around, you can see that's going in the sort of right, space, going halfway along that tile. Okay, so I'm just going to swap these over. And then I want one here which is, again, it's same, sockets are on the same side, but this is going to be one, this one is going to be 1.414 by 1. So 1.414 by 1. And grab that and rotate that around and swap those over. Okay, and then this one is going to be 1.414 by 1, but it's going to have the opposite angle. It's going to be minus 135. And which way around is that? That's that way. Yeah, so that's that way, and then swap those round. Should probably put in a little button which just allows you to swap them with a click. Right, and then this one's going to be 1.414 by 2. Okie dokie. Right, so I'm just going to fill in the gaps in the walls. Oh, actually, no, I'll do this curved wall here first. So I'm going to go up to the where are we? Curved wall. Leave my defaults as they are. Click on MakeTile. We have a curved wall. Let's pop that there. Pop that one there. And then I'm just going to go to my straight wall. Where are we? Straight wall. Straight wall. Yes. Again, I'm going to keep everything as these 2x2 tiles, just so that they're easy to reuse. Right. So this one has the sockets on that side, so I just need to put that there. There. Okay, so that's my dungeon sketched out. So I'm just going to save that. So file, save. Okay, right. So now I'm going to sort of change the materials around so it looks a bit better. So I'm going to click on that, which is going to bring up the Eevee renderer, which is Blender's real-time renderer. So it sort of works in the same way as a game engine renderer does, rather than being the sort of the cycles non-real-time renderer, which takes forever to update when you've got lots of meshes, but which does give you better results eventually. Bing. So yeah, so that looks pretty, but we're not going to use that most of the time because it's slow. So I'm going to go back to Eevee. Right, so you can see with our walls that while some of them are displaying correctly, others not, basically. And this is because these tiles have been rotated, and Blender isn't taking that into account when it applies the texture. This is pretty easy to fix, so I'm going to click on one of these tiles which has got this wall material applied to it. I'm going to click on Materials, and then I'm going to click on the regular stone blocks material, which is this regular stone block material. I'm then going to go down to Material Mapping, and on this material, on most of the materials, you'll find that there's this option for a reference object. So I'm just going to click on the little eyedropper, and I'm going to select one of the tiles, or this tile in this case, where the material is displaying correctly. And once I do that, it's going to correct it all for all of these objects. Things might look a little bit strange on the curvy ones. I'll get to why that is in a later video where we mess about with this plinth, but for now don't worry about that. They will actually display fine when they're rendered, when they're exported out. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is for now, and I'm going to click on one of my floor tiles in this area. What I want is I want a cobbled floor instead of this stone floor, just for this room, or what will be a room eventually. So I'm just going to select all of these tiles first, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on floor tiles. I'm going to select change that to cobbles. And I was going to change this one, the one which is active, which is highlighted in yellow, to this cobble materials. I'm then going to press Control and L, which will bring up this Make Links menu. I'm going to click on Materials, and this will copy the materials from that tile to all the other tiles. Again, we have a slight issue because of rotation, which is that this one tile is rotated in another direction to the other ones. So I'm just going to, again, go to my material mapping, make sure I'm on cobbles, and select one of these others as my reference object, and that's going to make sure everything is rotated in the right direction. Looking at this, I actually want my cobbles to be going the other way. So I'm going to go to Material Options, make sure cobbles is selected, and here you'll see lots and lots and lots of different options for altering materials, which you can find out more about in one of my other videos. But for now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on rotation, and I'm going to rotate that around the Z axis, which is the up-down axis, by 90 degrees. And that's going to make them go left to right, just because I like that better. Okay, so the last thing I want to do in this video is I want to add a sort of a wall topper. So I want to add a second material which will sort of add slates, tiles or whatever to the top of this wall, because I'm not going to be worrying about stacking these tiles, so I want them to look a bit prettier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my materials menu with one of my wall tiles selected, and click on plus, and that's going to bring up, that's going to create a second, a third even material slot. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select the wall top material, which is very imaginatively named, and then I'm going to go down to textured areas, and I'm going to make sure that wall top is selected, top is selected. I'm going to click on assign material, and that's going to create this wall top material. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like in 3D, but rather than clicking on the cycles renderer, I'm going to actually make it 3D and show you what it'll look like in reality when it's printed out. So if I click on MakeTile, Make 3D, and then wait for a second. Okay, so it's brought up what this is going to look like. Now this is fairly low resolution at the moment, so I'm just going to whack up the subdivisions to 7, which will slow stuff down a little bit and make us wait, but this will preserve more of the detail. Okay, so that's what this tile will look like when it's exported, basically. So I think that looks rather cool. So I'm just going to click on return to preview, so that I don't have that really big heavy mesh lurking about in my scene, which slows things down, and I want to apply this material to all of my other walls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press 1 to go into front view. I'm going to select the very top of my tiles because I don't want to accidentally select sort of any of the floor tiles or anything like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing, which I'm going to press Control and L, which bring up the materials, make links, materials, and then I'm just going to click on the assign material button again, and that's going to assign this wall top material to all of the straight walls. Hasn't assigned it to these corner walls because they have two textured areas, two vertex groups, one for each corner, each leg, as it were, that I need to apply the wall top material to. So I'm just going to go X top, assign material, Y top, assign material. And you can see that that's now looking right. So again, just going to select the top, and don't think I need to worry about that I've got my other wall selected, so I'm just going to assign that to that, and assign that to that, and that's the wall top material on all of my corner walls. Now you'll see on these ones, which are the ones with this 135 degree angle, that it's not displaying correctly. That's because this is at an angle. So I'm going to need to create a duplicate of this material and rotate it on some of our tiles. So I'm just going to click on copy material. I'm actually going to copy it twice, and then I'm going to delete that original material. So can't see anything now. I'm going to call this wall top X and wall top Y. I'm going to assign wall top X to, yes, you guessed it, the top of the X top, and I'm going to assign the Y top to wall top Y. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to, I guess, rotate that texture by 45 degrees, don't I? So that is the Y top, I think it was, wasn't it? So I want to go down to material options and rotate that by 45 degrees. Yeah, okay, wrong one. X top, rotate that by, ooh, it's wall top X, wall top wall top Y. Sorry, I'm selecting the wrong thing. So it's wall top X, and that needs to be rotated by 45 degrees. Okay, so right, that looks fine. So I'm just going to do the same thing for these other ones which have got this 135 degree angle. And it's that one, isn't it? So wall top X, X top, assign material, wall top Y, Y top, assign material. Okay, right, so that looks right for the ones where the corner is on the inside, but for the ones where the corner is on the outside, it's not looking particularly brilliant because it's sort of that's crossing over there, and it's just doesn't look too good. So which one is which? Let's have a look. So X top is, I'm just gonna randomly move this X, so that was the other one, so it's the Y top. Right, so I'm gonna copy that one again, and I'm gonna delete that, and wall top Y, and assign that to Y, and then I'm just going to move this along. Since that's at 0.075, what happens if I go 0.1? No, what happens if I go 1? There we go. Right, so that's in the right place now. So I'm just going to do the same thing, which is I'm going to do the make links, and then assign the material to the right one. So that one, and this one. Actually, while I'm here, I'm just going to delete that excess material and make sure I've done the same thing on these ones. So that one, so yeah, so it's just there, isn't it? Right. So Control and L, materials, and alt of X, alt of X. Okay. Okay, right. So, yeah, that's looking pretty good. One thing I want to do is, before I do the export, is I'm just going to change this floor tile material so it's a bit less cracked. So I'm going to turn down the crack amount to 0.1. And that gets rid of them entirely on this particular variation of the tile, but I want to have a few of them cracked when I do the export. So I'm just going to go up here to randomize and click on seed and generate a few variations and see how often I get a cracked tile. And the answer is I very rarely get a cracked tile. I've got one there, but I think I want to turn that up to 0.25. Let's go. And okay, that's more common cracks, it looks like. So seed. Yeah, some of them are going to be non-cracked, and some of them are going to be cracked. Okay. Right. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to cycles mode, clicking on viewport shading or changing that to cycles. Okay, and this is what everything is going to look like, except with variations when it's printed out. And I think I'm quite happy with that. I just want that to be a bit stronger. I want these tiles to be jutting up a little bit more, so that, you know, when we print them out, it's really obvious that you've got more texture on them. So I'm going to whack the strength up to 2, and then it's going to update. Okay, that's going to be much more, you know, obvious, as it were, when it's printed out. Cool. Right, so what I now want to do is I want to export a few variants of all of these. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that subdivisions up there is 7. If you remember earlier, we when it was on 6, these tiles were losing lots of their detail, so I want to make sure that the subdivisions is on 7. I'm not going to click on Make 3D on all of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back again. I want everything to go quickly. So I'm going to go back to my viewport shading, and first of all I'm going to select all of these corner walls. Is that all my corner walls? Yeah, that's all my corner walls. And I'll select, I want to do the same thing with these ones. And these are my sort of unique walls, as it were. And I want to do the same with those floors. And I am going to leave this for now, because in the next video we're going to go and make various bits of the floor look a lot fancier, so I'm not going to export any extra bits from there. Right, so I've selected all these, which are my unique tiles, as it were, and I'm now going to go down to the export bit right at the bottom, and I'm going to make sure that I've got the place where I want to export my tiles to, and I'm going to make sure that voxelize is selected. And what voxelize is going to do is it's going to voxelize the tiles. But what it's going to do is, after they've been made 3D, it's then going to voxelize them, which means it's going to reconstruct the mesh out of lots and lots of tiny little cubes, and this will make sure that the mesh is manifold, so that when you come to print it out there's no errors. And the other thing it will do is it will make the mesh much smaller, because after it's voxelized it will simplify the mesh as well. So if you don't do that, then one of the wall tiles, for example, is about 25 megabytes in size, whereas after voxelizing it's about 6 megabytes in size, and it just stops me from filling up my hard disk. You don't have to voxelize it. It does mean that the export takes a bit longer, but the export frankly takes a long time anyway, and once you click on export tile you basically want to go and have a cup of tea. So after about 10 minutes you should have a folder which is full of all your tiles. I've just launched a second instance of Blender, and I'm going to import all of these to let you see what they look like. So I'm just going to go delete my default cube, and I'm going to go File, Import, STL, and I am going to find my folder. I'm just going to select all of these, and I'm going to click on Import STL, and then wait a little. Right, okay, so they've all imported, and now I'm going to zoom out, because when MakeTile exports everything, it changes the scale so that they're exported, so that when you import them into your slicer, they're the right size. This just means that they're much bigger than in MakeTile, which is why when I zoom out you're starting to see some of them disappear, because the viewport is set to cut off. So I'm just going to change that and change the clip distance to say 5,000 meters, so it doesn't cut off our tiles. So if we zoom in on these, you can see that they've been exported. We've preserved almost all of the detail, but they've been decimated as well. So I'm just going to press tab to go into edit mode, And you can see that on the flat bits, basically, MakeTile and the voxelizer has gotten rid of the excess detail it doesn't need, but it's preserved it in these areas. It's also made sure that this bit, the sort of the textured bit, is a single manifold mesh. But after sort of umming and ahhing about this, I've left the bases separate. This shouldn't affect the way it exports. It just means that when you do the voxelizing, it keeps everything crisp. So that you don't get sort of minor sort of fuzziness on the clips and stuff, which just is a bit annoying. So yeah, so that's all of those default unique tiles exported. So I'm now going to go back to my first file, and we're going to export the rest of them. So that's all of the sort of the unique ones done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select one of my floor tiles. So I've got this cobbled floor tile here, and I want to export let's say 4 different variations of this cobbled floor tile. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the variants up to 4, click on export tile, and then it's going to basically just create 4 different variants and export them out. So I've now got 4 variants of this tile, which, since I can rotate them around and stuff, that'll mean that you won't really be able to see that there's a repeating pattern particularly. Okay, so with my wall tiles, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to create a few more variants. I'm going to whack that up to 6. I'm going to do the same thing with these floor tiles here. I think 6 would be enough. Would 6 be enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, because I can rotate these around various different directions, can't I? So since I'm going to export the same number of variants of each tile, I'm going to select both of them, and then click on export tile, and I'll export 6 variants of each of the selected tiles. So I'm back in my second Blender file, and I've imported the variants which I've exported, and that's these 3 tiles or sets of tiles here. You can see that there's a bit of glitching because each of these tiles, because there's multiple variants of the tile, and they're all sort of one on top of the other, so Blender's kind of trying to draw them and it can't really. So I'm just going to move out these variants into their own little sort of spaces, and I'm going to do the same for my floors here, and the same for my walls. I'm just going to move these just generally into random space rather than rotating them all around. Right, so if I zoom in on on this set of wall tiles, it's easiest to see just on the top. You can see that we've got a different pattern of cracks basically, so they're unique. Each one is unique, and if we have a look at the actual, the size of the walls, again, this one's got cracks there, that one doesn't. This one here has got a crack there, and this one here doesn't. So yeah, so they're all unique, and again you can see a similar thing on the floor tiles where they've got different cracks or cracks in different places. In the next video we're going to work on this throne room part of our dungeon layout, and I'm going to show you how to make this plinth, which is 2 tiles, and it's made up of sort of multiple bits of other tiles. It's got a couple of sort of slightly different materials on it. This stars and hexagons material is actually made from an image from a height map rather than being a procedurally generated texture. So what I've done is I've literally just taken an image which I've taken off the internet, and then I've dropped that into a material which I've already built, and which you can find here. It's a custom image image material, and then generated this hexagon and stars pattern from that, and also show you how to tweak this sawtooth zigzag material. And then I'll show you how to combine all of these tiles, all these bits of tiles together to create single individual tiles which you can then print out. Okay, bye for now.